Daniel Walker sat at the small wooden table in their Seattle apartment in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. The kitchen smelled of freshly brewed coffee and the pesto pasta he'd made for dinner. The table was set for two, with plates, wine glasses, and napkins folded neatly in the corner. Across from him sat Caitlin Ross, his fiancée of 2 years. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a messy bun, and she was holding her phone, scrolling through something while Daniel spooned pasta onto her plate. "Smells great," Caitlin said, putting her phone down. "You've outdone yourself today." Daniel smiled, though he noticed she seemed distracted. Usually, Caitlin was chatty, talking about her students or making jokes about his habit of putting everything in its proper place. Today, she was quieter than usual. "Thanks," he replied, sitting down. "I decided to try a new recipe. The internet said that the basil should be fresh, so I stopped by the market after work." "Cool," Caitlin nodded, but her gaze slid to her plate, and she began to slowly twirl the pasta around her fork. Daniel took a sip of wine, watching her. He worked as a data analyst for a tech company, and his habit of noticing details extended to his personal life. Something was wrong. He decided to start a conversation. "How was your day?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "Did one of your third graders cause chaos again?" Caitlin smiled weakly. "Yes, the usual. Jackson spilled paint all over the table today. It took him half an hour to clean it up. How are you?" "Fine," Daniel said. "I finished the report for the client. Now I'm waiting for their comments. I hope I won't have to redo everything from scratch. The boss already hinted that the deadline is tight." Caitlin nodded, but her gaze wandered away again. She put her fork down and leaned back in her chair. Daniel felt a slight tension in his chest. He knew Caitlin well enough to know that she wanted to say something, but was hesitating. He decided not to delay. "Kate, is something wrong?" he asked bluntly. "You're so quiet today." She looked at him, her blue eyes meeting his brown ones, and for a second he thought she was going to brush it off, like she always did, saying, "It's okay." But instead, she took a deep breath. "Daniel, we need to talk," she said, her voice serious. He put the glass down on the table, feeling his heart beat faster. "Okay," he said. "About what?" Caitlin steepled her fingers on the table, her nails tapping lightly against the wooden surface. I think I need to take a break," she said without looking up. Daniel froze. He tried to comprehend what she meant. "A break?" he asked again. "What do you mean? A break in what?" Caitlin looked at him, her face tense. "In our relationship," she said, "I want to live apart for a while. Just two. Make sure I'm ready." "Ready?" Daniel frowned. "Kate, we're planning a wedding. In 6 months. Are you saying you're not sure?" "It's not that I'm not confident in you," she said quickly, holding up her hands. "It's just, this is a big step, Daniel. Marriage is serious business. I want to make sure we both do it right." Daniel felt his throat tighten. He pushed his plate away, his appetite gone. "Wait," he said. "Let's get this straight. You're saying you need time to figure out if you want to get married? Is this because of me? Did I do something?" No, it's not you." Caitlin shook her head. "It's me. I need some time to myself. To think." "Think about what?" Daniel asked, his voice a little sharper. "Kate, we've been together for 2 years. We've picked out a wedding venue. You've already ordered your dress. And now you're telling me you need to think about it. What's going on?" Caitlin looked away, her fingers nervously fiddling with the edge of her napkin. "I don't know how to explain it," she said quietly. "I just feel like I need space. It's not that I don't love you. I just want to be sure." Daniel looked at her, trying to understand what was behind her words. They had been living together for over a year, and everything had seemed stable. They had discussed whether to honeymoon at Lake Tahoe or the Oregon coast, argued over what kind of cake to get, and laughed about how his nephew Tom would be the ring bearer at the ceremony. And now this? "Kate," he said, trying to keep his voice even. "If something's wrong, tell me. We're a team, aren't we? Why can't you just tell me what's bothering you?" "I'm trying," she said, her voice shaking. "But I don't really understand it myself. I need time. I don't want to make a decision like that without being 100% sure." "A decision?" Daniel leaned forward. "You make it sound like marriage is some kind of contract you can cancel. We're not just dating, Kate. We're engaged. This is serious." "I know," she said, looking him in the eye. "And I'm not saying I want to call it all off. I'm just asking for a little time to figure it out." "What does that mean?" he asked. "Are you moving? Where?" "To Abby's," Caitlin answered. "She offered to let me stay with her for a while. It's not far, you know." "To Abby?" Daniel asked. "You've already decided?" "Without even discussing it with me." "I didn't mean to upset you," she said. "I thought it would be easier, just temporarily." "Kate, do you understand how this sounds? We're planning a wedding, and you're going to your friend's house to think about it. This is not normal." Caitlin stood up, walked around the counter, and stopped at the sink, turning her back to him. "I don't want to fight, Daniel," she said. "I'm just asking for some space. It's not the end of the world." "Kate, you're leaving me in the dark. You don't explain what's going on, you just say you need time. How am I supposed to take that?" She turned to him, her eyes shining with tears. "I'm not leaving you," she said. "I love you. But I don't want to go into marriage with doubts. It's unfair to both of us." Daniel looked at her, his heart clenched with a mixture of anger and pain. He wanted to believe her, but her words rang hollow. He didn't know how to continue this conversation. "When are you leaving?" he asked finally. "Tomorrow," Caitlin answered. "I've already packed some things. Abby said I can stay with her as long as I need." "You weren't even going to discuss this with me, were you?" "I was going to," she said. "I just didn't know how to start." "Well, you did it," he said sharply. "Congratulations." Caitlin lowered her head, her fingers fiddling with the hem of her shirt. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean for it to turn out this way." Daniel didn't answer. He walked back to the table, sat down, and stared at his untouched pasta. He wanted to scream, to demand answers, but he knew it wouldn't change anything. Caitlin had already made up her mind. "I need to think," he said finally. "I don't know how to handle this, Kate, but I'll try to give you your space." "I understand," she said quietly. "Thank you, Daniel." She came up to him as if to touch him, but stopped. A minute later, she went into the bedroom, leaving him alone at the table. Daniel sat looking at his glass of wine, trying to understand how his life, which had seemed so stable, had suddenly gone downhill. The next morning, Caitlin packed her suitcase. They were standing by her old hatchback, parked outside their house. "I'll call you," Caitlin said, looking at him. "I promise." She nodded, got into her car, and drove away. Daniel watched her car disappear around the corner and felt his world crumble. He walked back into the apartment, closed the door, and sat on the couch, trying to process what was happening. Daniel Walker woke up in an empty Capitol Hill apartment with a heavy feeling in his chest. It had been a day since Caitlin Ross, his fiancée, had announced she needed a break and left to stay with her friend Abby Miller. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, where the white paint had yellowed slightly at the corners. Caitlin usually turned on the radio in the morning, humming along to pop hits while she made coffee. Now the silence was deafening. Daniel checked his phone, no messages. He'd texted Caitlin last night, "Just let me know you're okay." There was no response. He stood up, pulled on jeans and a gray t-shirt, and headed to the kitchen. The refrigerator was full of groceries from their dinners together, a jar of olives, cheese, half a bag of spinach. Daniel made coffee and sat at the table where he and Caitlin had discussed their wedding just a week ago. Now the table was empty except for his mug and laptop. He opened his email, hoping to distract himself. He had a new project coming up: data analysis for a client, a startup building a health app. The deadline was tight, and that would keep his mind occupied. Daniel finished his coffee and drove to the office in downtown Seattle. The drive took 20 minutes, and traffic was light for a Monday morning. The office was in a modern building with large windows overlooking Puget Sound. Daniel sat at his desk, surrounded by monitors and stacks of paper. His colleague Ryan Peck, a developer with a scruffy beard, stopped by. "Hey Dan, how was your weekend?" Ryan asked, holding up a mug that said code or coffee. Daniel shrugged, not looking up from the screen. "It's fine. And you?" "Oh, I finally fixed the bug in the code, so I'm the hero of the week." Ryan grinned. "Why are you so gloomy? The wedding is coming up. You should be on cloud nine." Daniel paused. He didn't want to go into details, but Ryan had been his friend for 3 years, and it was hard to hide. "Caitlin's taking a break," he said quietly. "She's moving in with a friend for a while." Ryan whistled, sitting on the edge of the table. "Seriously? A break? Is this like in the TV series? Did she say why?" "She says she wants to make sure she's ready for marriage," Daniel said, opening up a spreadsheet of data. "I don't know what that means." She barely responds. "Dude, that's weird," Ryan said. "You've been together for 2 years. And this, maybe it's just stress. Weddings get on everyone's nerves." "Maybe," Daniel said, but his voice was unenthusiastic. "I'm trying not to push, but it's stressful." "Of course," Ryan nodded. "Listen, if you want, we can go to a bar after work. We'll have a beer, take your mind off things." "I'll think about it," Daniel said. "Thank you." Ryan clapped him on the shoulder and went back to his desk. Daniel stared at the screen, where the numbers and graphs should have occupied his thoughts. He started sorting through the data, but after half an hour, he realized he was checking his phone every 5 minutes. Caitlin had texted him once that morning. "I'm fine, just busy. Talk to you later." That was all. Daniel felt annoyed. Busy about what, he thought, but he didn't text. He didn't want to seem intrusive. On his lunch break, Daniel went to the coffee shop across the street. He ordered a latte and a turkey sandwich, sat by the window, and opened Instagram. Caitlin always posted stories of her students, of her coffee, of the Seattle skyline. Now her profile was empty. The last post was a photo of her and Daniel on a picnic 2 weeks ago with the caption, "Best day ever." He looked at her smile and wondered what had changed. Was she just stressed, like Ryan had said? Or was it something more serious? Daniel decided to text Abby. He knew her through Caitlin. They'd been friends since high school, and Abby often visited their house. He opened the chat and typed, "Hey Abby, how is Caitlin? Is she okay?" 10 minutes later, she responded, "Hey Dan, she's just stressed. Give her some time, she'll be fine." Daniel frowned. The response was too general, as if Abby didn't want to get into specifics. He wrote, "Did she say anything? I'm just trying to figure out what's going on." Abby responded, "Nothing specific. She's just sorting herself out. Don't worry." Daniel put the phone down, feeling a growing sense of unease. There was clearly something Abby was not telling him. He returned to the office, but found it difficult to concentrate on work. His boss, Lisa, came to see him later in the afternoon. "Daniel, how's the project going?" she asked, adjusting her glasses. "The client expects preliminary results by Friday." "Everything is under control," he replied, although that wasn't quite true. "I'll start compiling the data today." "Great," Lisa said. "If anything happens, let me know if you need help." "Thank you," Daniel nodded. After work, he decided not to go to the bar with Ryan, citing fatigue. Instead, he drove home. His apartment was silent. He threw his backpack on the couch and turned on the TV, but didn't watch it. His thoughts were racing around Caitlin. Why wasn't she responding? What was she hiding? He opened her Instagram again, nothing new. He checked her WhatsApp. Her last visit was 2 hours ago. She was online, but she hadn't texted him. Daniel decided to call his sister Laura. She lived in the suburbs of Seattle, raised her son Tom, and was always a support system for him. He dialed her number, and Laura answered on the second ring. "Hi, Dan," she said. "How are you?" "Not really," he admitted. "Caitlin moved out, said she needed a break." "What?" Laura sounded surprised. "A break? What the hell is that? Did she explain why?" She says she wants to make sure she's ready for the wedding, Daniel said. But she barely responds. I texted Abby, her friend, but all she keeps saying is that Caitlin's stressed out. Laura paused. That's weird, Dan. If she can't explain what's going on properly, that's not good. Have you talked to her? I tried, he said, yesterday when she announced it. But she just keeps saying she needs time. I don't know what to do. Look, Laura said, I know you don't want to push her, but you can't just sit there and wait. Write to her, tell her you want answers. If she won't talk, that's an answer in itself. Maybe you're right, Daniel said. It's just, I thought we were doing well. And then this. I know, Laura said more gently, but sometimes people change, or show who they really are. Don't blame yourself. Come and see us this weekend. Tom will be happy, and so will I. Okay, Daniel smiled. Thank you, Laura. You're welcome, she replied. Hang in there. He hung up and sat down on the couch, looking at the phone. Laura was right, he couldn't just wait. He opened a chat with Caitlin and typed, Kate, I understand you need time, but I need answers. Please text me when you can talk. He sent the message and stared at the screen. Delivered, read, no response. Daniel turned on his laptop to distract himself. He opened a file with data for the project, but the numbers were blurry before his eyes. Daniel Walker sat at his desk in a downtown Seattle office, staring at his computer screen. The spreadsheets of data for a new client project blurred before his eyes. It had been 3 days since Caitlin Ross had called it quits and moved in with her friend Abby Miller. Her texts had been few and far between, the last one coming yesterday morning. I'm fine, just busy. Daniel tried not to push, but the silence was driving him crazy. He checked his phone. Nothing new. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, but instead of working, he opened WhatsApp. Caitlin had been online an hour ago. Why wasn't she responding? Ryan Peck, his colleague and friend, looked in on him holding a bottle of water. Dan, you look like you haven't slept in a week, Ryan said, sitting on the edge of the table. Still about Caitlin? Daniel sighed, leaning back in his chair. Yes, he admitted. She hardly writes. I don't know what's going on. It's like she doesn't need me anymore. Dude, this sucks, Ryan said. Listen, you need to take your mind off things. Let's go to a bar tonight. The Rusty Anchor in Ballard. They have live music on Thursdays. We'll have a beer, listen to a band. What do you say? Daniel shook his head. I'm not sure I'm in the mood, he said. I just want to go home. Home? To stare at the ceiling and check your phone every 5 minutes. Ryan rolled his eyes. No way, Dan. You're coming. I'll pick you up at 7. No arguments. Daniel wanted to argue, but he realized Ryan was right. Sitting at home and worrying wouldn't help. He nodded. Okay, he said. But if it sucks, you owe me a pizza. Deal, Ryan grinned. You'll see, you'll like it. After work, Daniel returned to his Capitol Hill apartment. He showered and changed into a dark shirt and jeans, trying to get ready for the evening. The apartment felt empty without Caitlin. Her coffee mugs were still in the closet, and her education books were still on the shelf. He checked his phone, nothing. Sighing, he put on his sneakers and walked outside, where Ryan was waiting in his old Toyota. The Rusty Anchor was packed. The Ballard bar smelled of beer and fried chicken wings, and guitar chords blared from the speakers. On a small stage, a band was tuning their instruments. Drums, guitars, a microphone with a frayed cord. Daniel and Ryan made their way to the bar, ordering pints of local IPA. The lights were dim, and old photos of ships and neon signs adorned the walls. How do you like it? Ryan asked, taking a sip. Better than home yet? Not yet, Daniel said, looking around. But beer is normal. That's progress, Ryan chuckled. Look, the band is about to start. They say they're local. They play rock with a touch of blues. Maybe we'll even dance. Dream on, Daniel said, but the corners of his lips twitched into a smile. They found a table against the wall, overlooking the stage. The band started playing, a fast beat, raucous vocals, the crowd singing along. Daniel tried to relax, but his eyes wandered around the room. And then he saw her. Caitlin was standing at the bar, laughing, her blonde hair glinting under the lights. There was a guy next to her, tall, with tattoos on his arms, wearing a leather jacket. Daniel recognized him. Matt Cassidy, her ex, a bartender and musician in a local band. They had dated in high school, and Caitlin had mentioned him a few times, calling him a youthful mistake. Daniel froze, his fingers tightening around his glass. Caitlin leaned toward Matt, speaking into his ear, and he laughed, putting his hand on her shoulder. They looked close, too close to be a casual encounter. Ryan saw Daniel tense up. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked, following his gaze. "Oh shit, is that Caitlin?" "Yes," Daniel said, his voice low, "and he's her ex." "Seriously," Ryan frowned. "What is she doing here with him? This isn't her style." "I don't know," Daniel said, not taking his eyes off Caitlin, "but I don't like it." Caitlin turned, her gaze slid around the room, but she didn't see Daniel. She laughed again, touching Matt's arm. Daniel felt his insides boil. He wanted to go over, to ask what was going on, but something stopped him. He didn't want to make a scene in front of everyone. "Let's get out of here," he said to Ryan, placing the glass on the table. "Wait," Ryan said. "Are you sure? Maybe we should talk to her." "Not now," Daniel said. "I don't want to discuss it here." Ryan nodded, finished his beer, and they headed for the exit. Daniel took one last look at Caitlin. She was still standing with Matt, unaware that he was there. The air outside was cool and smelled of rain. Daniel shoved his hands in his pockets, trying to calm himself. "Are you okay?" Ryan asked as they walked to the car. "Anger," Daniel said, "and I don't know, like I've been betrayed." "I understand," Ryan said, "but maybe it doesn't mean anything. Just a meeting of old friends." "Friends?" Daniel shook his head. "You saw how they acted. That doesn't sound like friendship." "Okay," Ryan said. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet," Daniel said. "I'll wait to see what she says, if she says anything at all." They got into the car, and Ryan turned on the radio to break the silence. Daniel stared out the window, his thoughts racing. He remembered Caitlin saying she needed time to make sure. Now he wondered if she was being honest. Maybe it wasn't about the wedding, but about Matt. He hated himself for thinking that, but he couldn't stop it. At home, Daniel threw his keys on the table and sat down on the couch. He opened his phone, but didn't text Caitlin. Instead, he texted his sister, Laura. "Caitlin saw her ex at the bar. I think our relationship is over." Laura responded a minute later. "Wow, Dan, this is definitely not good. Call me tomorrow and we'll talk." Daniel Walker drove down Interstate 520 toward Redmond, the Seattle suburb where his older sister, Laura, lived. It was an overcast Saturday morning, with a light rain falling that left beads on the windshield of his gray Honda. It had been 2 days since he'd seen Caitlin Ross, his fiancée, at the Rusty Anchor with her ex-boyfriend, Matt Cassidy. Their laughter, her hand on his shoulder, his arm around her waist, the images kept popping into his head. Caitlin hadn't contacted him since that night, ignoring his texts asking to talk. Her silence weighed heavily on Daniel, and he felt like he needed to share it with someone to keep from going crazy. He stopped at a bakery in downtown Seattle and bought a box of donuts maple for Laura's son Tom, chocolate for her. It was a half-hour drive to Redmond, and he parked outside Laura's house, a one-story building with blue shutters and a bed of daisies at the entrance. Daniel took the donuts and knocked on the door. Laura answered, her dark hair pulled back into a messy bun, her gray sweatshirt stained with juice. "Hello, Dan," she said, smiling. "Oh, donuts. You know how to bribe Tom." "Hello," Daniel replied, walking in. "I thought you wouldn't be in the way. Where is he?" "He's in the living room, as usual, buried in his video games," Laura said, closing the door. "Come in, I just made some coffee." The living room smelled of toast and apple cider vinegar. Tom, age 7, with a shock of blonde hair, sat on the couch, playing on his tablet. The screen flashed with colorful blocks that he connected with his finger. A bowl of leftover cereal sat nearby. "Uncle Dan," Tom exclaimed, taking off his headphones. "You've arrived." "Hey, Tom," Daniel said, setting the box on the table. "I bought some donuts. Would you like some with maple syrup?" "Yes." Tom jumped up, throwing the tablet. "These are my favorites. Thank you." "Don't eat it all at once," said Laura, bringing 2 mugs of coffee. "Otherwise, you'll run across the ceiling." "I won't," Tom grinned, grabbing a donut and returning to the game. Daniel sat down on the sofa. Laura settled into the chair opposite him, holding a mug. She looked at him, her gaze attentive. "Well," she said, "tell me. You wrote that you saw Caitlin with her ex. What was that?" Daniel took a sip of coffee, gathering his thoughts. He didn't want to spill the beans, but he knew Laura would get the truth out of him. "I went to a bar with Ryan on Thursday," he began, "just to take my mind off things. And Caitlin was there, with Matt Cassidy, her ex from high school. They were standing at the bar, laughing. She touched his arm. He put his arm around her. It didn't seem like a casual encounter." "Hugged?" Laura frowned, putting her mug on the table. "Dan, this is serious. Were they acting like a couple?" "I don't know," Daniel said, looking at his hands. "But it was too close. She didn't even notice me. I left without asking." "Left?" Laura raised her eyebrows. "Why didn't you come over? You had the right to ask what she was doing with that guy." "What would I say?" Daniel asked, his voice growing louder. "Hey, Kate, why are you here with him?" To the whole bar. "I didn't want to look like an idiot." "You wouldn't look like an idiot," Laura said. "You're her fiancée. If she's hanging out with her ex and not telling you, she's the one who looks bad, not you." Daniel shook his head as he bit into his donut. "I wrote to her yesterday," he said. "I asked to talk. She read it but didn't answer. It's been almost a week now, and all she does is send short messages." "That's not okay, Dan," Laura said, her tone firm. "She's not just taking a break, she's pushing you away. And now, with her ex, that's disrespectful." "I know," Daniel said quietly, "but I don't want to ruin it. We've been together for 2 years, planning a wedding. Maybe she's just confused." Laura sighed, leaning back in her chair. "Listen," she said, "I was in this situation. When Paul started to pull away, I thought it was my fault. I convinced myself that if I gave him time, things would get better. Then I found out he was sleeping with someone else. Disrespect starts with little things like that: silence, evasiveness, meeting behind your back. You don't have to tolerate that." Daniel looked at her, feeling a lump in his throat. "Do you think she's with him?" he asked. "I mean, asleep." "I don't know," Laura said. "But if she's seeing her ex and won't tell you what's going on, that's a problem. You deserve the truth. And if she can't give it to you, that's her choice, not your failure." "What should I do?" Daniel asked. "Just give up. After everything we've had?" "Talk to her," Laura said. "Frankly, tell her you saw her with Matt and ask her what it means. If she won't be honest, you don't have to stay in this relationship. You don't have to suffer, Dan. Love isn't about feeling unwanted." Daniel nodded, but his insides were clenching. He wanted to believe that Caitlin was just stressed, that this was temporary. But her silence, her interactions with Matt, all of it made him doubt. For the first time, he wondered if he wanted to continue. 2 years together, the wedding plans, the dream of a home, it all felt important. But now he wondered if it was worth the pain. "Tom," Laura called, looking at her son. "Maybe you should show Uncle Dan your new game, the one with the cars?" "Oh yeah," Tom jumped up, grabbing the tablet. "Uncle Dan, it's racing. I won 3 tracks yesterday." "Cool," Daniel said, smiling. "Come on, show me." They moved to the couch and Tom began explaining how to operate the car on the screen. His enthusiasm was infectious and Daniel listened, nodding as Tom explained the tracks and bonuses. "Here, try it," Tom said, handing over the tablet. "Just don't crash the car, okay?" I'll try, Daniel said, taking the tablet. He drove around the circle, but crashed into the barrier, causing Tom to laugh. Ha, you're worse than me, said Tom. Let's do it again. As they played, Laura watched, holding her coffee. Daniel felt the tension ease a little. Tom was reminding him that there were things that mattered: family, simple moments. But his thoughts kept returning to Caitlin. Laura was right, he couldn't wait forever. He decided to give her a week. If she didn't explain what was going on, he wouldn't cling. And maybe he didn't want to anymore. Tom, said Laura, go clean your room if you want another donut. Okay, Tom sighed, running away. Laura looked at Daniel. Are you okay? She asked. Really? I don't know, he said. I'm angry, and I'm starting to think that maybe this isn't mine. If she behaves like this, do I want to be with her? That's a good question, Laura said. You deserve someone who doesn't make you doubt yourself. Think about it. And come over tomorrow, I'm making lasagna. Tom will be happy. Okay, Daniel said. Thank you, Laura, for everything. You're welcome, she replied, hugging him. It was a busy Monday morning. Daniel was drinking coffee from a paper cup he'd bought at the coffee shop across the street when his boss, Lisa Martin, walked into his cubicle. Her dark hair was pulled back into a neat bun, and she was clutching a folder. Daniel, do you have a minute? Lisa asked, adjusting her glasses. Of course, he said, pushing the keyboard away. What happened? We have a new project, Lisa said, handing over the folder. A charity associated with an animal shelter in Fremont. They need to analyze their adoption data to optimize their operations. The deadline is tight, but I know you can handle it. You can go there tomorrow morning and discuss the details. Animal shelter? Daniel asked, opening the folder. Unusual. Yes, but this is a good opportunity, Lisa said. They're doing something important, and our client wants to help. If you do it right, it could lead to new contracts. Got it? Yes, Daniel nodded. I'll take care of it. Great, Lisa said. Keep me posted. She left, and Daniel flipped through the paperwork. Fremont Fur Haven collected data on animals, adoptions, and donations, but their reports were chaotic. His job was to clean things up and suggest improvements. It was new, and Daniel felt a little intrigued. Maybe the work would take his mind off of Caitlin. He spent the day sorting through data and preparing questions for the meeting. At lunch, he checked his phone, nothing from Caitlin. Her Instagram was empty, which was odd for someone who usually posted stories about each day. Daniel texted Ryan Peck, his friend and colleague. You were right, the bar didn't help. Caitlin still hasn't spoken. Ryan responded, Dude, forget her for tonight. This new project is your chance to take your mind off things. Daniel chuckled, but his chest was still heavy. The next morning, Daniel drove to Fremont, a Seattle neighborhood known for its art installations and quirky cafes. The Fremont Fur Haven was a low-rise building with a sign showing a dog with a wagging tail. It smelled of food and detergent. There were cages with cats in the lobby and a Labrador sleeping on a mat in the corner. A woman in her 30s with short black hair and a green t-shirt with the shelter's logo sat at the front desk. Hello, Daniel said, walking over. I'm Daniel Walker from TechWave Solutions. I'm here to discuss a data project. Oh, hi, she said, standing up. I'm Sophia Chen, volunteer and coordinator. Thanks for coming. Shall we go to the office? Of course, Daniel said, following her. They walked through a hallway where cats meowed in cages and a few dogs barked in their pens. The office was small, with a wooden desk covered in papers and a board covered with post-it notes. Sophia offered him a chair and poured him coffee from a thermos. Would you like some coffee? She asked. It's not the best, but it's drinkable. Thank you, Daniel said, taking the mug. So, I've looked at your data. It's a little messy. I want to understand what you need from the analysis. Oh yeah, Sophia smiled. We're more about animals than numbers here. We need to know what breeds are most adopted, what time of year, and how best to distribute donations. Right now, we're writing everything down by hand, and it's a nightmare. I see, Daniel said, opening his laptop. If I create a database and reports, will that help? That would be a lifesaver, said Sophia. We have 30 dogs and 40 cats, and we barely have time to keep track of who's where. If we knew, for example, that puppies leave faster in the summer, we could plan better. Daniel nodded, writing down her words. Okay, he said. I can set up adoption reports for the last 2 years. Anything else you need? Donations, Sophia said. We get money from local businesses, but we don't understand how it relates to our campaigns. If you could show us what works, we could raise more. I will, Daniel said. I'll need access to your files, and maybe another meeting to work out the details. No problem, said Sophia. Want to see the shelter? To understand what the data is about. Why not? Daniel said, closing the laptop. They went out into the area with the enclosures. Sophia stopped at the cage with the ginger cat, who stretched lazily. This is Marge, she said, opening the door and petting the cat. She was found in a box by the road. Now she's the queen of the shelter. Cute, Daniel said, watching the cat purr. A lot of stories like this? Too many, Sophia said, her voice growing serious. But when you see them find a home, it's worth it. There's Buck over there, she pointed to a black Labrador chewing on a toy. He's being adopted next week. A family with kids, perfect for him. Daniel looked at the dogs wagging their tails and the cats dozing in their cages. Sophia spoke with such warmth that he couldn't help but become interested. How long have you been working here? He asked. I've been volunteering for 3 years, said Sophia. I started when I lost my job. It helped me stay sane. What about you? Have you always been involved with data? Yes, Daniel said. It's reliable. Numbers don't lie, people do. Sophia looked at him, her gaze attentive but not intrusive. It sounds like you're going through a tough time, she said. I don't want to pry, but if you want to take your mind off things, come volunteer with us. Animals are the best therapists. Daniel smiled slightly but shook his head. Thank you, but I'm not ready yet, he said. There's too much going on, but I'll think about it. No pressure, Sophia said, smiling. Just know we're here. And thanks for helping with the data. It really is important. They returned to the office and Daniel gathered his things. I'll send you a draft of the report in a couple of days, he said. If you need anything, write. Agreed, said Sophia, handing over a business card. My number and email. See you later, Daniel. He nodded and stepped outside. The air smelled of rain, and there were people with umbrellas walking along the sidewalk. Daniel got into the car, feeling a little lighter. Sophia and her quiet confidence had left their mark. He wasn't looking to meet new people. Thoughts of Caitlin were still on his mind, but the idea of volunteering had stuck in his head. Maybe that was what he needed. Daniel Walker stood at the kitchen counter in his Capitol Hill apartment, chopping onions for dinner. His knife clicked rhythmically on the cutting board, and a pan of olive oil sizzled on the stove. It was Sunday morning, and he decided to make an omelet with vegetables to take his mind off the thoughts that had been swirling around in his head for the past 3 weeks. Caitlin Ross, his fiancée, had called it quits, moved in with her friend Abby Miller, and had become largely uncommunicative. Her meeting with ex-boyfriend Matt Cassidy at a bar, her silence, and her evasive texts had eroded Daniel's trust. After talking to his sister, Laura, and meeting Sophia Chen, a volunteer at an animal shelter, he'd begun to question whether he wanted to continue the relationship. He'd given Caitlin a week to explain, but the deadline had passed without her responding. There was a knock at the door. Daniel frowned, drying his hands on a towel. He wasn't expecting company. He walked up to the door, looked through the peephole, and froze. Caitlin stood there, wearing jeans and a light blue top, a small bag over her shoulder. Her blonde hair was loose, and there was a slight smile on her face, as if she had just stopped by for coffee. Daniel opened the door, his heart pounding. Hey, Dan, Caitlin said, stepping inside. Smells good. Are you cooking? Caitlin, Daniel closed the door, his voice full of surprise. "What are you doing here?" She put her bag on the floor next to the sofa and walked into the living room, looking around. "I just decided to stop by," she said, sitting down on the sofa. "I missed the apartment. And you?" Daniel stood by the door, arms crossed. Her casualness was disconcerting. 3 weeks of silence, seeing Matt, ignoring his texts, and now she was acting like nothing had happened. "Missed me?" he asked, his tone sharp. "You didn't write, you didn't call. I asked to talk, and you ignored me. And now you just come in." Caitlin looked at him, her smile fading. "I know I've been out of touch," she said. "I needed time to think things through. But I'm here, Dan. I want to come back." "Go back?" Daniel took a step toward her, his voice growing louder. "Kate, you left without an explanation. You were dating Matt, and now you think you can just come back?" Caitlin frowned, her fingers tightening on the edge of the couch. "How do you know about Matt?" she asked. "I saw you at the bar," Daniel said. "You were laughing, touching him. He was hugging you. Don't tell me it didn't mean anything." She looked away, her cheeks flushing slightly. "It's not what you think," she said. "We were just chatting. Old friends." "Old friends?" Daniel shook his head. "Kate, you take a break to check in, and then I see you with your ex. You expect me to believe that's just talk." Caitlin stood up, her voice firmer. "I didn't mean to upset you," she said. "Yes, I dated Matt. I wanted to see if I had feelings for him. But I figured it out, Dan. I chose you." Daniel froze, her words hitting him like a slap in the face. He felt the anger and pain fighting inside him. "You were seeing him to test your feelings?" he asked, his voice shaking. "Are you serious? We were planning a wedding, Kate. Were you testing to see if you wanted to get back together with him?" "It's not like that," Caitlin said, stepping toward him. I needed to be sure. I didn't want to go into marriage with doubts. It wouldn't have been fair." "Not fair?" Daniel raised his voice. "It wasn't fair to dump me without an explanation. It wasn't fair to ignore me for 3 weeks while you were hanging out with Matt. Do you have any idea how that made me feel?" Caitlin looked down, her hands clenched into fists. "I know I screwed up," she said quietly. "But I'm here, Dan. I want to fix this. We can go ahead with the wedding. I've been thinking about invitations. A cake, I saw a gorgeous vanilla one with berries." "Wait," Daniel interrupted, raising his hand. "Are you serious? You're talking about cake? After everything that happened? You think I'm just going to forget you pushed me away and get back to making plans?" "I didn't mean to push you away," Caitlin said, her voice shaking. "I love you. I was just confused. But it's all clear now. I want to be with you." Daniel looked at her, his heart clenching. Part of him wanted to believe, to hold her, to put everything back the way it was. But the other part, the part that had listened to Laura, that had seen Caitlin with Matt, that was tired of her silence, was screaming that this was the end. "Kate," he said, his voice calmer but firmer, "I can't trust you. You left without telling me what was going on. You were seeing someone else while I was waiting. I can't live wondering if you'll decide to test the waters again." Caitlin stepped closer, her eyes shining with tears. "Dan, please," she said. "I made a mistake. I'll do anything to fix it. Give me a chance." "I gave you 3 weeks," Daniel said. "You chose silence. You chose him. Now you want me to pretend it never happened? I can't." He looked at her left hand, where the wedding ring glittered, the one he had given her a year ago, kneeling in the park. His voice turned cold. "Take off the ring," he said. Caitlin froze, her face turning pale. "What?" she whispered. "Take it off," Daniel repeated. "You can't wear it. Not after this." She looked at the ring, her fingers shaking. Slowly, as if she couldn't believe it, she took it off and placed it on the coffee table. The sound of metal on wood was barely audible, but to Daniel it sounded like a finale. "Dan," Caitlin said, her voice breaking, "is this really what you want? We can work this out." "No," he said. "I don't want to. I can't trust a man who can push me aside so easily." Go away, Kate. She stood there looking at him, tears streaming down her cheeks. For a second, he thought she was going to argue, but she just nodded, picked up her bag, and headed towards the doors. At the threshold, she turned around. I really love you, she said. Daniel didn't answer. She left, and the door closed. He sat down on the couch, looking at the ring on the table. His hands were shaking, but inside he felt a strange relief. It hurt, but it was right. Teeth phone vibrated on the table, revealing an unfamiliar number. Daniel frowned, but answered. Hello, he said, pushing the laptop away. Hey, Dan, it's Abby, came the voice on the other end. Abby Miller, Caitlin's friend. Daniel tensed. He knew Abby through Caitlin. They were friends from high school, and she often visited their house. The last time he'd written to her was when Caitlin had just moved away, but her evasive replies like, she's stressed, hadn't cleared anything up. Hi, Abby, he said, trying to sound neutral. What's wrong? Nothing serious, she said, her voice light. Just wanted to talk. About Caitlin. Maybe we can meet. I'll be at Bean Haven on Capitol Hill in an hour. Would you like to stop by? Daniel paused. He had no desire to discuss Caitlin, especially with her friend, but curiosity got the better of him. Maybe Abby knew something that would explain her behavior. Okay, he said, I'll be there. Cool, Abby replied. See you later. He hung up, feeling a little annoyed. Why was Abby calling? He turned back to the data, but it was hard to concentrate. An hour later, he packed up and drove to a coffee shop 2 blocks from his apartment. Bean Haven was a cozy place with wooden tables, the smell of freshly brewed coffee, and windows overlooking a busy street. Abby was already sitting by the window, her red hair pulled back into a high ponytail, a latte in front of her. She waved when she spotted him. Dan, hi, she said, smiling as he approached. Sit down. Do you want some coffee? Yes, said Daniel, sitting down. I'll order. What would you like? I'm fine, Abby said, pointing to her mug. Thank you. Daniel walked up to the counter, ordered a black coffee, and returned to the table. Abby was scrolling through her phone, but put it down when he sat down. So, how are you? She asked, her tone too friendly. Long time no see. Fine, Daniel said, taking a sip. Work, business as usual. You said you wanted to talk about Caitlin? Abby nodded, her smile growing more serious. Yes, she said. I know things are, well, complicated right now. She told me. I just wanted to see how you were holding up. Daniel frowned as he placed his mug on the table. Did you tell me? He asked. What exactly? Well, what did you break up with? Abby said with a shrug. She's really upset, Dan. She says she made a mistake leaving. She's just confused. Confused? Daniel asked, his voice sharpening. Abby, she was dating Matt Cassidy, her ex, while we were together. That's more than just confusion. That's betrayal. Abby raised her hands as if defending herself. I know it looks bad, she said, but Caitlin didn't mean to hurt you. She was just trying to figure out her feelings. You know, marriage is a big step. Sort out my feelings? Daniel shook his head. She left without an explanation, ignored me for 3 weeks, and then I saw her with Matt. That's not an excuse, Abby. That's a choice. Abby leaned closer, her voice softer. I'm not arguing she screwed up, she said. But she loves you, Dan. She wants to make things right. Maybe we should give her a chance. Daniel looked at her, feeling his irritation growing. Why was Abby defending Caitlin? And why was she so persistent in trying to convince him? Abby, he said, trying to keep his voice even. We're done. I can't trust her after this. And honestly, I don't know why you're telling me this. What do you want? Abby blinked, her smile faltering. I just want to help, she said. Caitlin's my friend, and I see how much she's suffering. But I also know you're a great guy. Maybe you could talk, just to close this off nicely. Close it the easy way. Daniel leaned back in his chair. She already closed it all when she chose to remain silent. I'm not going to go back to that. Abby paused, her fingers fiddling with the rim of her mug. Then she smiled, but her smile was different this time, warmer, almost flirtatious. "Okay, I get it," she said. "You decided to move on. That's cool. Listen, I have an idea. There's a local band playing at the Crocodile on Friday. Good music, chilled out. Want to go together? Just as friends." Daniel froze, her tone and look clearly hinting at more than friendship. He felt a slight discomfort. Abby was a friend of Caitlin's, and her sudden interest seemed suspicious. "Abby," he said, looking her in the eye, "I'm not looking for a relationship, and honestly, I don't want you involved in this. If Caitlin has something she wants to say, let her say it herself, not through you." Abby blushed slightly, her smile disappearing. "Oh no, I didn't mean—" she began, but then stopped. "I just thought you could use a distraction. No innuendo." "Maybe," Daniel said, his voice firm, "but I'll handle this myself. And I'd rather you didn't play mediator. This is between me and Caitlin." Abby nodded, her face becoming more serious. "Okay," she said. "I understand. Sorry if I went too far." "It's all right," Daniel said, finishing his coffee. "But I have to go. Work calls." He stood up, leaving a couple of dollars on the table for his coffee. Abby watched him go, but said nothing. Outside, Daniel breathed in the cool air, feeling a mixture of relief and irritation. Abby was clearly hiding something. Was she just a friend trying to help? Or had Caitlin asked her to check on him? His suspicions grew, and he decided to keep his distance. Daniel Walker sat at a table in Bean Haven, a coffee shop on Capitol Hill, sipping black coffee and scrolling through Instagram on his phone. It was a cool Wednesday morning, and the shop smelled of freshly brewed espresso and warm croissants. It had been a week since he'd broken off his relationship with Caitlin Ross, demanding he return his engagement ring and move out of their apartment. Her tears and attempts to get back together had left a bitter taste in his mouth, but Daniel felt like he'd done the right thing. A conversation with his sister, Laura, meeting Sophia Chen, a volunteer at the animal shelter, and a recent encounter with Caitlin's friend, Abby Miller, had strengthened his resolve to move on. But Caitlin's shadow still loomed. Daniel posted an Instagram story, a photo of his coffee with the caption, "Morning begins." 5 minutes later, he noticed that Caitlin had viewed it. His fingers hovered over the screen. She had been doing this for 3 days in a row, watching his stories but not responding or liking his posts. It was weird. Caitlin had always been active on social media, posting photos of her students or views of Seattle, but after their breakup, her account had gone silent. Now she was following him, and it was annoying. He put his phone down and took a sip of coffee, trying to distract himself. He'd sent a preliminary report to the Fremont Fur Haven yesterday, and Sophia had written that the data looked promising. The work was helping him focus, but thoughts of Caitlin kept coming back. Her silence after the breakup, her meetings with Matt Cassidy, her attempt to come back as if nothing had happened at all left him feeling betrayed. And now this social media stalking. Daniel finished his coffee and walked out of the coffee shop, heading for his car. Across the street, he spotted a familiar figure, Caitlin in a black jacket and shoulder bag, standing at the bus stop, looking at her phone. His heart pounded. It could have been a fluke, but Bean Haven was his favorite breakfast spot, and Caitlin knew it. She glanced up, but when she saw him, she quickly turned away and walked the other way. Daniel clenched his fists, feeling his anger rising. This was no fluke. At the office, he tried to focus on the data, but his thoughts were racing. His colleague Ryan Peck stopped by during his break. "Hey, Dan, how are you?" Ryan asked, holding up a sandwich. "You look like someone stole your coffee." "Caitlin," Daniel said, leaning back in his chair. "She watches my Instagram stories, and I saw her at Bean Haven today. She left when she saw me." "Seriously?" Ryan frowned. "That's creepy, man. Is she following you?" "I don't know," Daniel said, "but I don't like it. She doesn't write, she doesn't call, but she shows up where I go." "Text her," Ryan said. "Tell her to leave me alone, or block her." I've thought about it, Daniel said, but I want to know what she's up to first. Be careful, Ryan said. After that meeting with Abby, I wouldn't trust their company. Daniel nodded, remembering Abby trying to get closer, protecting Caitlin. He went back to work, but by evening he had decided to take action. At home in his Capitol Hill apartment, he opened Instagram and saw that Caitlin had looked at his story again, a photo of the sunset he'd taken while jogging in Green Lake Park. That was the last straw. He opened a chat with her and typed, "Caitlin, stop following me. I saw you at the coffee shop and you're looking at my stories. This isn't going to change anything. Leave me alone." He sent the message and stared at the screen. A minute later, it was read. 5 minutes later, a reply came back. "Dan, I'm not stalking. I'm just worried about you. Can I talk?" Daniel felt a flash of anger. Worried, after everything she'd done? He wrote, "No, Kate, we've said it all. If you continue, I'm going to get a restraining order. This is serious." He texted and blocked her number, feeling the tension ease. The threat was harsh, but he knew he had to set boundaries. Laura had warned that Caitlin might be trying to manipulate, and he didn't want to give her a chance. The next day, he noticed that Caitlin wasn't checking his stories anymore. She wasn't in Bean Haven, and he breathed a sigh of relief. But he was still a little worried. What if she didn't stop? He texted Laura, "Caitlin was stalking me on social media and showed up at the coffee shop. I told her to stop and threatened to ban her. Seems to have worked." Laura responded, "Good job, Dan. Keep her distance. You deserve some peace." Daniel Walker parked his Honda outside the Fremont Fur Haven Animal Shelter in Fremont, a Seattle neighborhood known for its colorful graffiti and bustling coffee shops. It was Saturday morning, and gray clouds threatened rain. It had been a month since he'd broken up with Caitlin Ross after she'd kept quiet, met up with her ex-boyfriend Matt Cassidy, and tried to stalk him on social media and outside a coffee shop. The threat of a restraining order seemed to have worked. Caitlin hadn't appeared again, and her Instagram activity had died down. But Daniel still felt a tingle of anxiety, as if she might come back. Talking to his sister Laura, getting support from his friend Ryan Peck, and recently meeting Caitlin's friend Abby Miller had strengthened his resolve to move on. Now he was looking for a way to fill the void left by the breakup. Last week, he completed a preliminary report for the shelter, sending it to Sophia Chen, a volunteer he'd met on his first visit. Her message, "Great report, come by if you want to help with the dogs," stuck in his head. Daniel had never been particularly attached to animals, but her quiet confidence and suggestion that he try volunteering piqued his interest. He figured it might be a chance to take a break and texted Sophia to say he'd be there on Saturday. The inside of the shelter smelled of food and disinfectant. Cats in cages meowed in the hallway, and a dog barked in the far corner. Sophia stood at the front desk filling out paperwork, her black hair braided, a fur stain on her green t-shirt with the shelter's logo. "Daniel, hi," she said, smiling as he walked in. "I'm glad you came. Ready for some dog chaos?" "Hello," Daniel said, taking off his jacket. "I think so. What do you need to do?" "First, sign this," Sophia said, handing over the form. "This is a volunteer agreement. Then I'll show you where everything is. We have a lot of work to do today. We need to walk the dogs, clean the enclosures, and feed them." Daniel signed the form, feeling a little nervous. He didn't know what to expect, but he was ready to give it a try. Sophia led him to an area with kennels where a dozen dogs, from a shaggy terrier to a large Labrador, were wagging their tails and barking. "This is our gang," said Sophia, opening the pen containing a small brown dog. "This is Luna, a spaniel. She loves to walk, but she pulls on the leash. Want to try it?" "Sure," Daniel said, taking the leash. Luna jumped up and down, licking his hand. "Hold on tight," Sophia said, smiling. "Let's go to the backyard. There's a playground there." They came out into the fenced area, where Luna immediately ran towards the bushes, sniffing the grass. Daniel held the leash, trying to keep up. Sophia picked up the other dog, a black Labrador named Buck, and joined him. "You're a quick learner. she said as Buck pulled her toward the tree. Aren't you afraid of the dirt? Not yet, Daniel said, laughing as Luna tried to jump into a puddle. But she's clearly trying to test me. That's their job, Sophia said. Dogs sense when you need to be shaken up. They're like therapists, only with tails. Daniel looked at Luna, who was happily running around in circles, and felt the tension in his chest ease. For the first time in weeks, he wasn't thinking about Caitlin or her stories, or the fact that she might show up at the coffee shop. You said volunteering helped you, he said, looking at Sophia. How was it? Sophia paused, adjusting Buck's leash. I lost my job 3 years ago, she said. I was a designer at a startup, but they went bankrupt. It really threw me off. I was sitting at home, going over everything in my head, starting to get depressed. A friend suggested I come here, so I decided to give it a try. At first, I just fed the cats, then I started walking the dogs. Animals don't judge, you know. They're just happy to have you around. It gave me purpose. Daniel nodded, her words touching something in him. I understand, he said. I've been having a hard time lately. I broke up with my fiancée. Well, it's complicated. I'm so sorry, Sophia said, her voice soft. Breaking up is always painful, but you're here, and that's a step. Do you want to tell me? Not really, Daniel said, but he smiled. Maybe later. Right now, I just want to figure out how to stop Luna from dragging me into the bushes. Ha, it's a skill, Sophia said, laughing. Come on, I'll show you how to hold the leash. They spent an hour walking the dogs, then returned to the shelter to clean the kennels. Daniel washed the bowls while Sophia put out the food. The work was physically exhausting, but he felt useful. Sophia talked about each animal, Marge the cat, who liked to sleep on the windowsill, and Rocky the puppy, who had recently been adopted by a family. You're great, Sophia said when they were finished. For the first time, great. Will you come again? I think so, Daniel said. It helps. Okay, said Sophia. We're here on Saturdays and Wednesdays. Come whenever you want. And if you decide to get a dog, Luna's clearly taken a liking to you. Daniel looked at Luna, who was lying at his feet, chewing on a toy, and smiled. I'm not ready for a dog yet, he said, but I'll think about it. Daniel Walker pushed open the heavy wooden door of the Tipsy Whale, a pub in Seattle's Ballard neighborhood. The smell of hops, roast potatoes, and a faint smoke from the grill filled the air. It was a Friday night, and the pub was buzzing with people laughing at tables, glasses clinking, and soft rock music blaring from the speakers. It had been 5 weeks since Daniel had broken off his relationship with Caitlin Ross, demanding the return of his engagement ring after she'd kept quiet, met with her ex, Matt Cassidy, and tried to stalk him. The threat of a restraining order seemed to have worked. Caitlin was gone from his life, leaving him with only a slight sense of unease. Volunteering at the Fremont Fur Haven with Sophia Chen and counseling from his sister Laura had helped him move on, but he was still searching for ways to fill the void. His colleague and friend Ryan Peck was already seated at a corner table, holding a pint of dark ale. His beard had grown a little longer, and his t-shirt read, "Coding is my cardio." Ryan waved when he spotted Daniel. "Hey, Dan, over here," he called, pointing to a chair. "I already ordered wings. Spicy, like your drama." Daniel smiled as he took off his jacket and sat up. "Thanks for reminding me," he said, shaking his head. "What are you drinking?" "Black Raven IPA," Ryan said, raising his glass. "Recommended. How are you? You look less tragic than last time." Daniel grinned, gesturing to the waiter. "Black coffee," he said, then turned to Ryan. "Yeah, better. Work, volunteering at the shelter, trying to stay sane." The waiter brought the coffee and Daniel took a sip, feeling the warmth spread through his chest. Volunteering, Ryan raised his eyebrows. "What, you're a dog dad now? Tell me." "Not yet," Daniel said. "I just help out at the shelter. Walk the dogs, clean the kennels. There's a volunteer there, Sophia. She's inspiring. She says the animals help you find balance." Sophia, huh? Ryan grinned. Sounds like the beginning of a rom-com. Is she cute? Ryan, Daniel rolled his eyes. It's not that. She's just normal, no drama, and I'm not looking for a relationship. Okay, Ryan said, raising his hands. But seriously, you're doing great. After this whole Caitlyn saga, you need something to get her out of your head. Has she been around yet? No, Daniel said. After I threatened to ban her, she went quiet. But I still check to see if she's watching my stories. It's stupid, I know. It's not stupid, Ryan said. It's okay. But man, you can't live your life looking back at her. Caitlyn made her choice when she started hanging out with this guy Matt. What about you? Are you stuck in your tragedy, or are you ready to move on? Daniel paused, looking at his coffee. I want to move on, he said, but sometimes I feel stuck. Everything reminds me of her, the apartment, the coffee shop, even the damn playlist in the car. Oh, that sounds familiar, Ryan said, taking a bite out of a wing. When I broke up with Lisa, I couldn't listen to the Killers for 6 months because she loved them. But you know what helped? Doing new things. I joined CrossFit, almost died, but it knocked the crap out of my head. CrossFit? Daniel raised his eyebrows. Seriously? Yeah, Ryan said, laughing. But you don't need that. I have a better idea. There's a marathon in Seattle in 3 months, a half marathon, 13 miles. Sign up. Running is like therapy, only cheaper. You'll blow off steam, you'll become cool, and Caitlyn will be a thing of the past. A marathon? Daniel shook his head. I haven't run since high school, and that was just one lap in gym class. So what? Ryan said. Start small. Run a few miles, then more. I'll even give you my old running playlist. It's straight rock, no sappy pop. What do you say? Daniel thought about it. He wasn't an athlete, but the idea of something new and physical appealed to him. Volunteering at the shelter had already helped, and running could be another way to distract himself. Okay, he said, I'll think about it, but if I die on the highway, it's on your conscience. Agreed, Ryan said, raising his glass. Here's to a fresh start, Dan. No drama, no exes. Daniel raised his mug, clinking it with his. For this, he said. They spent another hour chatting about work, the new games Ryan had downloaded, and their plans for the weekend. Ryan told them how his last attempt at a date ended with the girl being a vegan and lecturing him about meat. Daniel laughed, feeling the tension ease. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't thinking about Caitlyn every minute. At home in his Capitol Hill apartment, Daniel opened his laptop and searched for information about the Seattle Half Marathon. The website promised a course through downtown along Puget Sound with views of the mountains. He downloaded a training app and decided to start small, a run in Green Lake Park tomorrow morning. He texted Laura, Ryan talked me into doing the marathon. Wish me luck. Laura replied, Are you serious? That's awesome, Dan. Don't break your legs. The next morning, Daniel put on his old sneakers, headphones, and walked out to Green Lake Park. The air was crisp, smelling of grass and the lake. He ran 2 kilometers, out of breath, but feeling energized. The music on Ryan's playlist Punchy Rock set the pace. Daniel Walker pushed open the heavy wooden door of the Tipsy Whale, a pub in Seattle's Ballard neighborhood. The smell of hops, roast potatoes, and a faint smoke from the grill filled the air. It was a Friday night, and the pub was buzzing with people laughing at tables, glasses clinking, and soft rock music blaring from the speakers. It had been 5 weeks since Daniel had broken off his relationship with Caitlyn Ross, demanding the return of his engagement ring after she'd kept quiet, met with her ex, Matt Cassidy, and tried to stalk him. The threat of a restraining order seemed to have worked. Caitlyn was gone from his life, leaving him with only a slight sense of unease. Volunteering at the Fremont Fur Haven with Sophia Chen and counseling from his sister Laura had helped him move on, but he was still searching for ways to fill the void. His colleague and friend Ryan Peck was already seated at a corner table, holding a pint of dark ale. His beard had grown a little longer, and his t-shirt read, Coding is my cardio. Ryan waved when he spotted Daniel. "Hey, Dan, over here," he called, pointing to a chair. "I already ordered wings. Spicy, like your drama." Daniel smiled as he took off his jacket and sat up. "Thanks for reminding me," he said, shaking his head. "What are you drinking?" "Black Raven IPA," Ryan said, raising his glass. "Recommended. How are you? You look less tragic than last time." Daniel grinned, gesturing to the waiter. "Black coffee," he said, then turned to Ryan. "Yeah, better. Work, volunteering at the shelter. Trying to stay sane." The waiter brought the coffee and Daniel took a sip, feeling the warmth spread through his chest. "Volunteering?" Ryan raised his eyebrows. "What, you're a dog dad now? Tell me." "Not yet," Daniel said. "I just help out at the shelter. Walk the dogs, clean the kennels. There's a volunteer there, Sophia. She's inspiring. She says the animals help you find balance." "Sophia, huh?" Ryan grinned. "Sounds like the beginning of a rom-com. Is she cute?" "Ryan," Daniel rolled his eyes. "It's not that. She's just normal, no drama, and I'm not looking for a relationship." Okay, Ryan said, raising his hands. "But seriously, you're doing great. After this whole Caitlyn saga, you need something to get her out of your head. Has she been around yet?" "No," Daniel said. "After I threatened to ban her, she went quiet. But I still check to see if she's watching my stories. It's stupid, I know." "It's not stupid," Ryan said. "It's okay. But man, you can't live your life looking back at her. Caitlyn made her choice when she started hanging out with this guy, Matt. What about you? Are you stuck in your tragedy, or are you ready to move on?" Daniel paused, looking at his coffee. "I want to move on," he said, "but sometimes I feel stuck. Everything reminds me of her, the apartment, the coffee shop, even the damn playlist in the car." "Oh, that sounds familiar," Ryan said, taking a bite out of a wing. "When I broke up with Lisa, I couldn't listen to the Killers for 6 months because she loved them. But you know what helped? Doing new things. I joined CrossFit, almost died, but it knocked the crap out of my head." "CrossFit?" Daniel raised his eyebrows. "Seriously?" "Yeah," Ryan said, laughing. "But you don't need that. I have a better idea. There's a marathon in Seattle in 3 months, a half marathon, 13 miles. Sign up. Running is like therapy, only cheaper. You'll blow off steam, you'll be cool, and Caitlyn will be a thing of the past." "A marathon?" Daniel shook his head. "I haven't run since high school, and that was just one lap in gym class." "So what?" Ryan said. "Start small. Run a few miles, then more. I'll even give you my old running playlist. It's straight rock, no sappy pop. What do you think?" Daniel thought about it. He wasn't an athlete, but the idea of something new and physical appealed to him. Volunteering at the shelter had already helped, and running could be another way to distract himself. "Okay," he said. "I'll think about it. But if I die on the highway, it's on your conscience." "Agreed," Ryan said, raising his glass. "Here's to a fresh start, Dan. No drama, no exes." Daniel raised his mug, clinking it with his. "For this," he said. They spent another hour chatting about work, the new games Ryan had downloaded, and their plans for the weekend. Ryan told them how his last attempt at a date ended with the girl being a vegan and lecturing him about meat. Daniel laughed, feeling the tension ease. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't thinking about Caitlyn every minute. At home in his Capitol Hill apartment, Daniel opened his laptop and searched for the Seattle Half Marathon. The website promised a course through downtown, along Puget Sound, with views of the mountains. He downloaded a training app and decided to start small running in Green Lake Park the next morning. He texted Laura, "Ryan talked me into doing it. Wish me luck." Laura responded, "Are you serious? That's awesome, Dan. Don't break your legs." The next morning, Daniel put on his old sneakers, headphones, and walked out to Green Lake Park. The air was crisp, smelling of grass and the lake. He ran 2 kilometers, out of breath, but feeling energized. The music on Ryan's playlist Punchy Rock set the pace. Daniel Walker pushed his cart down the aisle of a Safeway supermarket on Capitol Hill, throwing in his weekly groceries: a bag of rice, a jar of tomato sauce, frozen broccoli, a package of chicken breast. It was a Sunday morning, and the store was crowded: families with children, college students with baskets of ramen noodles, older couples arguing over yogurt. It had been a month and a half since he'd broken up with Caitlin Ross after she'd kept quiet, met with her ex-boyfriend Matt Cassidy, and tried to stalk him. The threat of a restraining order had stopped her, and she'd disappeared from his life, leaving only a faint echo of anxiety. Volunteering at the Fremont Fur Haven with Sophia Chen, running in the mornings in Green Lake Park on the advice of his friend Ryan Peck, and the support of his sister Laura had helped keep Daniel grounded. He began to find peace, but sometimes he caught himself thinking that he was still waiting for a catch. Daniel paused at the canned tuna aisle, deciding between the oil and water-based varieties, when he heard a voice behind him. "Daniel, is that you?" He turned around and froze. Standing in front of him was Matt Cassidy, Caitlin's ex-boyfriend, holding a basket filled with pizza, chips, and a bottle of Coke. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, tattoos peeked out from under the sleeves of his black t-shirt, and an awkward smile was plastered on his face. "Matt," Daniel said, his voice even but his insides tense. "Hi." "Long time no see," Matt said, setting the basket down. "How are you?" Daniel gripped the handle of the cart, trying not to show his irritation. The last time he'd seen Matt was at the Rusty Anchor, laughing with Caitlin, his arm around her. Daniel had left then, not wanting to cause a confrontation, but now it was harder to avoid the conversation. "It's fine," he said, taking a can of tuna. "And yours?" "Same here," Matt said, scratching the back of his head. "Listen, can I just have a word? I wanted to clear something up. About Caitlin." Daniel frowned as he placed the jar in the cart. "What do you want to clarify?" he asked, his tone cold. "It's all clear anyway." Matt raised his hands as if defending himself. "I know what it looked like," he said, "at the bar and all that, but I didn't know you were on a break. She didn't say you were still together. I wouldn't have. Well. Daniel looked at him, trying to judge if he was lying. Matt seemed sincere, but that didn't change anything. "You didn't know?" Daniel asked. "Did she mention that we were engaged, that we were planning a wedding?" Matt shook his head, his face becoming more serious. "No," he said. "She said you had a fight and she needed time. I thought you had broken up. She wrote to me herself, asking to meet. I wasn't going to interfere in your affairs." Daniel felt anger flare, not at Matt, but at Caitlin. Her insincerity, which he had suspected, was now confirmed. She wasn't just confused, she was deliberately seeking out Matt while hiding it. "She suggested it?" Daniel asked, his voice quiet but firm. "Yeah," Matt said. "She said she'd be at the bar where we were playing. I thought it was just a friendly get-together. But then she started, you saw. I didn't know it was a surprise for you." Daniel nodded, his fingers tightening around the cart. He hadn't wanted to go into detail, but Matt's words had removed the last of his doubts. Caitlin had lied not only to him, but to everyone around her. "Okay," Daniel said, "I don't hold it against you. But this is between me and her. I don't want to talk about it anymore." "I understand," Matt said, nodding. "Sorry if I did. I didn't mean to butt in. If I see her, I'll tell her to leave you alone." "Don't," Daniel said. "Just leave me alone. No hard feelings." "No problem," Matt said, picking up the basket. "Good luck, man." He walked away to the checkout, leaving Daniel standing there, staring at the shelf. His heart was beating faster, not with anger, but with relief. Matt had confirmed what he already knew. Caitlin had been dishonest from the start. It wasn't his mistake to end the relationship. She had made her choice long before he demanded the ring back. Daniel finished his shopping, paid for his groceries, and drove home. In his Capitol Hill apartment, he put the food on the shelves, feeling the weight of the past lighten. He texted Laura, Met Matt at the store. He said Caitlin was the one asking for the dates. That makes sense. Laura wrote back, "That's it, Dan. You did the right thing. Proud of you." He smiled, knowing his sister was always on his side. Daniel Walker parked his Honda outside his sister Laura's house in the Seattle suburb of Redmond on a Friday night. The sky was clear, rare for late fall, and stars filtered through the city lights. In the trunk was a box of pepperoni pizza and a carton of soda, his contribution to the family's dinner. It had been 2 months since he'd broken up with Caitlin Ross after her silence, meetings with her ex, Matt Cassidy, and attempts to stalk him. The threat of a restraining order had stopped her, and Caitlin had disappeared from his life, leaving behind lessons in trust. Volunteering at the Fremont Fur Haven with Sophia Chen, running in Green Lake Park on the advice of his friend Ryan Peck, and Laura's support had helped Daniel regain his confidence. A recent encounter with Matt at the grocery store, where he'd confirmed Caitlin's dishonesty, had provided the final piece of the puzzle. Now Daniel was looking for ways to strengthen his life, and his family was his support. He knocked on the door, and Laura opened it, her dark hair pulled back into a ponytail and a flour stain on her jeans. She smiled when she saw the pizza. "Dan, you're a lifesaver," she said, taking the box. "Tom's been whining about pizza for an hour. Come on in." "Hi," Daniel said, walking in and setting the soda down on the table. "Where's the champion?" "In his room, fiddling with his new construction set," Laura said, closing the door. "I bought him a rocket set. Now he thinks he's going to be an astronaut." Daniel smiled as he took off his jacket. Laura's living room smelled of freshly baked cookies and lavender detergent. The couch was covered with embroidered pillows, and there were pictures on the wall. Tom on the carousel, Laura and Daniel at graduation, their parents at an old family picnic. Daniel felt a warmth he had missed in recent months. "Tom," Laura called. "Uncle Dan is here. Come while the pizza is hot." There was a thud from the hallway, and Tom, age 7, came barreling into the living room. His blonde hair was sticking up in all directions, and his t-shirt had the Star Wars logo on it. He rushed toward Daniel, throwing his arms around him. "Uncle Dan," Tom exclaimed. "Did you bring pizza? Pepperoni?" "Yeah," Daniel said, laughing. "And a Coke. But only if you eat the veggie part." "Ugh," Tom winced, but then smiled. "Okay, one piece. Come on, I'll show you my rocket. I'm almost done." "Wait," Laura said, setting the plates on the table. "Dinner first, then the rockets." "Well, Mom," Tom whined, but obediently sat down at the table. Daniel joined them, opening a pizza box. Laura poured cola into glasses and water for herself. They began to eat, and Tom immediately began to talk about school. "We had science class," he said, munching on pizza. "We made a volcano out of baking soda and vinegar. It exploded. Miss Clark said I was a scientist." "Seriously?" Daniel said, smiling. "Maybe you could build a real rocket and send us to Mars." "Maybe," Tom said thoughtfully. "But first I have to finish my model. There are a lot of parts, and the instructions are complicated." "Show me after dinner," Daniel said. "I'll help." Laura looked at her brother, her gaze warm. "You look better, Dan," she said. "Not as lost as before. What's new?" Daniel took a bite of his pizza, considering his answer. "The work is going on," he said. "The project for the shelter is almost ready. Volunteering helps. I walk the dogs, talk to Sophia, the volunteer. She's cool, no drama." "Sophia?" Laura raised her eyebrows, smiling. "Is that the one you mentioned? You seem to like her." "Not like that," Daniel said, shaking his head. "It's just, she's fine, and running helps. Ryan talked me into training for a half marathon. I'm already running 3 kilometers. "A marathon?" Laura whistled. "Seriously? You who hated gym?" "Yeah," Daniel said, laughing. "I'm shocked, but it clears my head. Caitlin's not on my mind anymore." Laura nodded, her face becoming more serious. "I'm glad," she said. "After everything she did, the silence, Matt, the surveillance you deserve peace, and I'm proud you're not sitting still. Thank you, Daniel said, feeling warmth from her words. Without you, I'd probably still be waiting for her call. Well, I won't let you be an idiot, Laura said, smiling. Tom, have you finished your meal? Go get your construction set. Hooray! Tom jumped out from behind the table, running to his room. Daniel helped Laura put away the dishes while she loaded the dishwasher. How are you? He asked. Work, Tom. Is everything okay? The usual, Laura said. Accounting keeps you busy, and Tom's a whirlwind. But we manage. Sometimes you just want to take a vacation, you know, somewhere without bills and homework. I see, Daniel said thoughtfully. Maybe we can arrange something. A trip, for example. A trip? Laura looked at him. Where? I don't know, he said. Maybe the Olympic National Park? There are forests and beaches there. Tom will like it, and you'll have a rest. That sounds good, Laura said. But it's not cheap, Dan, and I've got a lot of things to do. I'll help, Daniel said. Seriously, let's plan for the spring. It'll be our family project. Laura smiled, her eyes sparkling. You're the best, she said. Okay, I'll think about it. But Tom will be thrilled. Tom returned, carrying a box containing a construction set. On the lid was a picture of a rocket surrounded by stars. Uncle Dan, look, he said, opening the box. There are 100 parts in here. I've already made the body, but the nozzles aren't working. Let's get this straight, Daniel said, sitting down on the floor next to him. They laid the parts out on the carpet, and Tom started showing them the instructions, explaining where everything went together. Daniel listened attentively, helping attach the plastic nozzles to the rocket body. Tom chattered away, telling them how he wanted to be an astronaut and go to the moon. Would you fly? Tom asked, looking at Daniel. Maybe, Daniel said, smiling, but only if you're a pilot. Agreed, said Tom, beaming. Laura watched them from the sofa with a mug of tea. Daniel felt the warmth of his family envelop him. Caitlin, her lies, her surveillance, it all seemed distant, almost unreal. Here, with Laura and Tom, he belonged. He remembered how Laura had supported him after the breakup, how Tom had made him laugh. His family had been his anchor, and he wanted to give something back. Laura, he said as Tom ran for water, I'm serious about this trip. Let's pick dates. I'll handle the booking. I want us to do it together. You're not kidding, Laura said, looking at him. Okay, Dan, let's try. In the spring, like you said, but only if Tom doesn't decide to take the rocket with him. I can live with that, Daniel said, laughing. It was Saturday morning, and the apartment smelled of freshly brewed coffee he'd made before heading out for a run. It had been 2 months since he'd broken up with Caitlin Ross. His finger hovered over the screen when he saw a new photo on Abby's story. It was of Abby and Caitlin sitting at a cafe, sipping lattes and smiling. The caption read, "Sometimes you have to let go to move on, but not everyone forgets that quickly, right?" Daniel frowned, his heart pounding. It was a clear reference to him. He knew Abby had seen his stories from his runs and the shelter, and her post seemed like an attempt to hurt him or provoke a reaction. He put the phone down, feeling his irritation rising. Abby had tried to interfere before, inviting him to the concert and defending Caitlin, but he had made it clear he didn't want them to interfere. Now this? He stood up and paced the room, trying to calm himself. The apartment was quiet, save for the ticking of the wall clock. His laptop was on the table, with a data file for the shelter open, and his sneakers were ready for a run. He didn't want Abby and Caitlin to drag him into their games again. Daniel picked up his phone and found Abby's number. He didn't want to text her. It was too easy to ignore. He pressed call and held the phone to his ear. On the third ring, she answered. Dan, Abby said, her voice surprised. I didn't expect that. What happened? Your Instagram post, Daniel said, trying to keep his voice even. What kind of innuendo is that? Moving on too quickly. Is this about me? Abby paused, then let out a nervous laugh. Oh, Dan, are you serious? She said. It's just a story. Nothing personal. Don't lie, Abby, Daniel said, his tone sharpening. You know I see your posts. Are you implying that I'm doing something wrong the way I live my life? After everything Caitlin did? Wait, Abby said. I didn't mean to hurt you. It's just that Caitlin's still upset. She saw your stories, running, volunteering, and she thinks you're over her. Forgot her? Daniel raised his voice. Abby, she left. She was dating Matt. She was stalking me. I gave her a chance, and she lied. And now you're publishing this to what? Make me feel guilty? No, it's not, Abby said, her voice quieter. Look, I shouldn't have posted that. Caitlin asked me to, keep an eye on you. She thought if you saw her hurt, maybe you'd want to talk. She wants you back, Dan. Daniel froze, his fingers tightening around his phone. Caitlin was still manipulating, using Abby as a go-between. It was too much. Take me back, he said, his voice cold. She's serious? After everything? Abby, I told her it was over. And I told you not to interfere. Why are you doing this? I just wanted to help my friend, Abby said, her tone becoming defensive. She's in a bad way, Dan. Crying, saying she's lost everything. I thought if I showed her she wasn't over you, you'd... Stop, Daniel interrupted. It's none of your business, and none of hers. I'm not coming back, and I don't want you posting anything about me or hinting at me. Stop spreading rumors. This is your final warning. Okay, Abby said quickly. I'll delete the post. I'm sorry, Dan. I didn't mean for it to hurt you so much. Go away, Daniel said, and tell Caitlin to leave me alone. I mean it. He hung up, feeling his anger give way to exhaustion. He opened Instagram and checked Abby's story. The post was gone. But that didn't ease the tension. Caitlin was still trying to insert herself into his life, and Abby was her tool. He knew he had to cut them off completely. Daniel went into his Instagram settings, found Abby and Caitlin's profiles, and hit block on both. He did the same on WhatsApp and his phone, deleting their numbers. His fingers shook, but he felt relief. This was the last bridge he'd burned, and he didn't regret it. Caitlin and her circle no longer had power over him. He texted Laura. Abby posted implying I was over Caitlin too quickly. Called her, she admitted Caitlin asked her to stalk me. Blocked both. Laura responded a minute later, Good job, Dan. They're not worth your time. Keep moving forward. He smiled, knowing his sister was always on his side. The next day, Daniel went to Fremont Fur Haven, where he walked Luna, the spaniel, and helped Sophia clean the enclosures. Her calm support and lack of drama were a breath of fresh air. He told her about the marathon, and she offered to run it together if he wanted. Daniel agreed, feeling strengthened by his new connections. That evening, he ran 4 kilometers in Green Lake Park, the music in his headphones setting the pace. Daniel Walker sat at his desk in a downtown Seattle office, reviewing the final report for a project involving the Fremont Fur Haven Animal Shelter. The computer screen displayed charts of dog and cat adoptions, spreadsheets of donation data, and recommendations for campaign optimization. It had been 2.5 months since he'd broken up with Caitlin Ross after her silence, meetings with her ex, Matt Cassidy, attempts to stalk him, and manipulation through her friend, Abby Miller. Blocking their social media accounts and phone numbers had freed him from their influence, and volunteering at the shelter with Sophia Chen, going for morning runs at Ryan Peck's suggestion, and having family support from his sister, Laura, and nephew, Tom, had helped him find a new rhythm. A recent encounter with Matt at the grocery store, where he'd confirmed Caitlin's dishonesty, and putting an end to Abby's rumors had strengthened his resolve to put the past behind him. His boss, Lisa Martin, walked into the booth holding a clipboard, her dark hair pulled back into a neat bun and her expression looking approving. Daniel, great work on the shelter project, she said, sitting down across from you. I sent your report to the client and they loved it. Their CEO said the data will help double adoptions next year. Thanks, Lisa, Daniel said, pushing the keyboard away. I'm glad it worked. That's not all, Lisa said, smiling. There's a local tech conference next week, Tech Trends Seattle. We want you to give a presentation on the project. Show how data can help nonprofits. It's a big opportunity, Dan. Daniel froze, his eyebrows raised. Speak, he asked. I've never given a presentation at a conference. It's hundreds of people. About 200, Lisa said, laughing. Don't worry, you can handle it. Your report is clear, and you know the material. Plus, it's a chance to attract new clients. What do you say? Daniel paused, feeling a little nervous. Public speaking wasn't his strong suit, but he knew it was a step up. After everything he'd been through, he wanted to prove to himself that he could do better. Okay, he said, I'm in. Great, Lisa said, standing up. Send me a draft of the presentation by Wednesday. And Dan, I mean it, you did a fantastic job. She left, and Daniel opened PowerPoint and began sketching out slides. He included graphs from the report, added photos of shelter dogs and cats, and wrote a talking point about how data could change animals' lives. By the evening, he had a draft, which he sent to Lisa. She wrote back, "This looks promising. Just polish up the takeaway slide and you're done." Daniel spent the next few days refining his pitch, practicing in front of a mirror in his Capitol Hill apartment. He was nervous, but energized. At the shelter, he told Sophia about the conference, and she smiled. That's awesome, Daniel, she said, walking Luna, the spaniel. You're going to be a star. Invite us volunteers to come see it. Maybe, he said, laughing. But for now, I just hope I don't forget the words. On the day of the conference, Daniel wore a navy blazer, white shirt, and jeans, feeling a little out of place. The downtown Seattle Convention Center was buzzing with people wearing badges discussing startups, artificial intelligence, and blockchain. His session was in a room of 100, and standing at the front of the stage, his knees were shaking. But as he began speaking, showing slides of data, and talking about the shelter, his voice grew confident. He explained how his analysis had revealed seasonal adoption trends and helped the shelter better allocate resources. The room listened intently, and there was applause at the end. Several people came up afterward with questions, and a representative from a local nonprofit asked for a referral for a collaboration. The next day, Lisa called him into her office. Daniel, you impressed everyone at the conference, she said. 2 clients already want to work with us, citing your presentation. We're offering you a promotion to senior analyst with a pay raise. What do you think? Daniel smiled, feeling proud. I agree, he said. Thank you, Lisa. You deserve it, she said. Keep up the good work. That evening, Daniel drove to the shelter to share the news. Sophia was in the kennels, feeding the puppies. He told her about the conference and the promotion, and her face lit up. Daniel, this is amazing, she said, wiping her hands on her jeans. You should be proud. We should celebrate. Celebrate, he asked, laughing. It's just work. Not easy, said Sophia. This is your victory. Let's have a pizza party for the volunteers. I'll order, you pay. Agreed, said Daniel. They gathered in the shelter's office Sophia, Daniel, and 3 other volunteers, including Tim, a student, and Mary, a retiree. Cheese crust pizza and soda sat on the table, and Buck, the Labrador, slept in the corner. Everyone congratulated Daniel, and he felt the warmth of their support. Sophia explained how his report was already helping the shelter plan campaigns, and he knew his work was making a difference. You're a celebrity now, Sophia said as they put away the boxes. You'll be performing all over the world soon. Don't exaggerate, Daniel said, smiling. But it's nice. Thanks for the support. You're welcome, she said. You're a good guy, Daniel, and Luna adores you. He looked at Luna sleeping at his feet and felt that Sophia was becoming his friend. Her calm, sincerity, and lack of drama were what he needed, was missing. But he was in no hurry to get closer. After Caitlin, he was cautious, preferring to focus on himself. At home, he texted Laura, got a promotion after the conference, celebrated at the shelter with pizza. Laura responded, proud of you, Dan, you're a star. Don't forget our trip. Daniel smiled as he opened the Olympic National Park website. His life was improving, and he was ready for new heights. Daniel Walker loaded backpacks into the trunk of his Honda, parked outside his sister Laura's house in the Seattle suburb of Redmond. It was a cool Saturday morning, with a light fog hanging over the lawn. It had been 3 months since he'd broken up with Caitlin Ross after her silence, her meetings with Matt Cassidy, her attempts to stalk him, and her manipulations through Abby Miller, blocking their accounts, volunteering at the Fremont Fur Haven with Sophia Chen, going for runs at Ryan Peck's suggestion, and supporting Laura and her nephew Tom had given him new meaning. A promotion to senior analyst after a successful conference presentation had bolstered his confidence. Now he was making good on a promise to Laura, a trip to Olympic National Park to spend time with his family and relax. Tom, aged 7, ran out of the house dragging a sleeping bag and a backpack with the Star Wars logo. "Uncle Dan, will we see bears?" he asked, beaming. "Or eagles?" "Maybe eagles," Daniel said, helping to load the bags. "But the bears will probably hide. Did you bring a flashlight?" "Aha," said Tom, showing a small flashlight. "And binoculars, I'll look for animals." Laura followed, carrying a cooler of food and water. Her dark hair was braided, and her work badge was pinned to her denim jacket. "Dan, are you sure we got everything?" she asked, looking around the car. "Tents, sleeping bags, food." "Triple checked," Daniel said, smiling. "We're ready. We even have spare batteries." "You're quite the Girl Scout," Laura said, laughing. "Okay, let's go. Tom, buckle up." Daniel took the wheel, Laura took the passenger seat, and Tom sat in the back, leafing through a book about animals. Before leaving, Daniel made one more call to Sophia Chen. After months of volunteering at the shelter, her quiet support and sincerity had become an important part of his life. Last week, after celebrating his promotion with pizza at the shelter, he asked her to join him on the trip. "It'll be fun," he said then, walking Luna. "Family, nature, no drama. Want to come with us?" "Really?" Sophia smiled. "Sounds great. I'm in, if Laura and Tom don't mind." "They'll be glad," Daniel said. "Tom already asked if you'd come." Now Sophia was waiting outside her Fremont home, carrying a backpack and wearing hiking boots. Her black hair was pulled back into a ponytail, and her t-shirt read, "Save Paws." She waved when she saw the car. "Hey, guys," Sophia said, sliding into the back seat next to Tom. "Thanks for inviting me." "Tom, ready to look for eagles?" "Yes," Tom exclaimed. "I have binoculars. Do you like hiking?" "I love it," said Sophia. "I saw a deer in the forest once. Maybe we'll get lucky." Laura turned, smiling. "Sophia, it's good to see you," she said. "Dan's told me a lot about you. Thanks for keeping him on his toes at the shelter." "He's the one holding us back," said Sophia, laughing. "Luna already thinks of him as her own." Daniel smiled as they pulled onto the highway. The drive to Olympic National Park took 3 hours. They drove through dense forests, past lakes that sparkled in the sun. Tom chatted about rockets and dinosaurs, Sophia talked about animals she had seen on hikes, and Laura shared stories about her and Daniel's childhood. The atmosphere was light, and Daniel felt the last vestiges of tension from the past fading. They stopped at Lake Crescent, where they set up camp. 2 tents, one for Laura and Tom, one for Daniel and Sophia, stood by the water, surrounded by pine trees. Tom immediately ran to the shore, throwing stones into the lake, while Laura laid out food. Daniel and Sophia collected wood for the fire. "It's beautiful here," said Sophia, looking at the lake. "Have you often been to the park?" "When I was a kid, with my parents," Daniel said, stacking branches. "Then I just didn't have time for it. What about you?" "A couple of times," said Sophia. "I love the forest. It makes you forget about the hustle and bustle. How are you holding up, after everything?" Daniel paused, tossing the branch into the pile. "Better," he said. "Work, running, shelter, and family, it helps. And you, are you always so?" Calm. Sophia smiled, her eyes sparkling. Not always, she said. But I've learned to find balance. You have too, it seems. They returned to the campsite, where Laura was making turkey sandwiches. Tom was pointing his binoculars at a bird in the sky, shouting that it was an eagle. After lunch, they went on a short hike to Merrimer Falls, picking their way along a trail strewn with pine needles. Tom ran ahead, Laura watched him, and Daniel and Sophia walked alongside, discussing the shelter, the marathon, and their future plans. Are you really going to run 21 kilometers? Sophia asked, adjusting her backpack. I'm trying, Daniel said. I've made it to 5 kilometers already. Ryan says I won't die. I believe in you, Sophia said, laughing. If anything happens, Luna will be your cheerleader. That evening, they had a fire, roasted marshmallows, and drank hot chocolate. Tom told scary stories he'd heard at school, and Laura laughed and corrected him. Daniel looked at them, grateful. His family was his anchor, and Sophia was a new light he hadn't expected to find. After Tom and Laura went to bed, Daniel and Sophia stayed by the fire, looking at the stars. The fire crackled, casting a warm light on their faces. Thank you for inviting me, Sophia said quietly. This is a special day. Thanks for coming, Daniel said. You fit right in, like you'd always been here. She looked at him, her eyes soft. Daniel felt warmth, not just from the fire. He leaned closer, and she didn't pull away. Their lips met in a gentle kiss, short but full of sincerity. They pulled away, smiling. It was unexpected, Sophia said, her cheeks flushing slightly. Yes, Daniel said. But, okay, I don't want to rush things, but I like you, Sophia. You too, she said. Let's just see where this leads. We have a deal, he said, taking her hand. They sat by the fire, holding hands, while the stars shone above them. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one.